You and I talked in 1999, I think, for the first Tony Hawk game for the Gameinformer cover. Uh, what's it like? This many years removed, going back to square one, right?
Uh, yeah, is it square one? In some ways it is. It's surreal. I was thankful that we ever got to do a sequel to our first game. To me, that was the big mark of success. And to be over 20 years out from the first release and to be remastering it and to have maybe more excitement for, in terms of the public and the fans for that release is incredible to me. And the technology has come so far. It's insane.
For you, when did you have that realization? Obviously, you're a pro skater. You go into making a game. What were your kind of expectations? And then when did you realize this was going to be a huge thing?
Well, I can't say that I thought it was going to change the world. Your
for
words,
games, for video games, right?
But I think that it was around the time it was getting released, and I had I invited a few friends over to come play it that were serious gamers, but also serious skaters. And I could tell from their excitement that we had something special. And they started telling other people. And before, I would say about 2 or 3 months before the game was released, I just heard whispers in the skate industry about the game. Have you guys played the game? Do you know about the game? And then I knew that at the very least we had the blessing and approval from the skate world. And right before release, Activision started to ramp up their marketing budgets, their expectations, and then so that was a good sign. But really for me is right after the release when Neversoft called me and said we're doing a sequel. We're working on a sequel now. That's when I knew that something was up. That it was way bigger and way more successful than I imagined.
Are there any kind of fun stories of it when it actually hit, the public being able to play it when you're at your skating events and stuff like that? Were people bringing the game disc or, the case for you to sign, or did people try to talk to you about the game and when
sure
trying to compete?
I think a little bit of that. It was more that my reality-based skating, people were expecting me to perform magic suddenly on my skateboard because of the things that they could make me do in the game. So I would go to exhibitions and they're like, first thing is like, do a 900. Well, there's nothing here that's even remotely big enough to do a 900 on. Well, then do a 360 flip to crooked grind to heel flip manual. And it's just like, okay, let's reset here a little bit. But it was fun. Like I can't, that kind of thing was not, it wasn't a burden. It was just amazing that people come that far, and that some random kid who had never skated knew what a 360 flip or a Japan Air was. Like that was the most amazing incidental thing to me.
Okay, I gotta ask, after Tony Hawk 3 came out, when you had the revert into the manual, where you had this thing where you can chain together endless runs. In real life, did you ever try doing, an air trick into a revert into a manual? See how many you could link together?
Someone just asked me that on a call this morning, and the answer is no.
Okay.
When you're doing reverts, especially on vert, you're just trying to survive the revert.
Okay.
Because that's a risky proposition, is to do a full 180 slide while you're coming down from a vert wall. A lot of things can go wrong. The last thing you're thinking about is, how do I turn this into a wheelie?
In terms of the first game, when that released, when we discussed our first cover we did with you, we had you positioned a certain way, and you said, well, don't have me angled that way because it makes me look like a sloppy skater. So we turned you, right? Like,
yeah.
Is there anything from the first game that you look at, and you're like, that move didn't look quite right, or the way this landed isn't right? Did you have any input on fixing those things for the new versions?
I did, but honestly, I feel like I dealt with all those issues before our first release. I was very proud of how the gameplay emulated real skating, and that was why I was so heavily involved in especially in the first game with the development and with Neversoft, because I wanted it to be authentic. So I don't think of it as anything um, that was too off. The only complaint I got were some of the names. And I went by the names of tricks that I knew and the eras I knew them from. But there's almost this sort of civil war in skateboarding about the ollie north
Okay.
because it's an ollie 1 foot according to many experts.
Did that
But
switch
I
then?
remember, hell no, I knew it as ollie north. I said what I said. I'm sticking with it.
So I guess one of my first questions for you is how, like, when you look back at those old games, they are so beloved. What did you want to take from those games while also making a modern title for 2020?
It was about the feeling and the gameplay, which is something that we haven't been able to capture since those earlier games. And I knew that Vicarious Visions would be true to that and would have reverence for it. And they played the game; they knew what it felt like. So really, it was that, but also the idea that we're going to. I hate to say upres because I feel like that's almost an insult to what we've done to the game, but to bring all of those maps and levels to 2020.
For sure.
And I think that's the key to all of this, is that we made the look truly feel like modern video gaming, but with all the levels to scale.
One of the things that you guys have released so far is that when you did mocap for the skaters, you wanted them to be today. Was that your call? And if so, like, why did you want to do that versus when the game first came out?
I just thought it would be more true to life that yes, we're older. We're 20 years older than we were when the game was released. But the amazing thing is most of us are still actively skating. And a lot of us are doing it still, in exhibitions and in videos and things like that. So why not celebrate that with what we really look like now? Like, I've come so far in terms of people telling me that I look old that I've kind of crossed through the other side of that, where it's like, holy shit, that guy's really old, really like good for an old guy. And it used to be like, oh, Tony Hawk got old. Like, yeah, well, I was 31 when the first game was released, so I wasn't a teenager, I wasn't a young man by that time. And so I don't want to dwell on this, but it's just fun because now, yes, I'm in my 50s, I'm still actively skating. Andrew Reynolds is in his 40s. He still is one of the best street skaters on the earth. And so why not show us for who we are? Because we're still walking the walk.
In that same breath, obviously people are nostalgic for certain things from the original game, but I look behind you there with those decks. Did you add in new decks that people can get, or is it all the classic stuff just brought back, or a mix?
It's both. But it was really cool to explore some of the older graphics and to do some reissues based on this.
So you're going to have actual physical decks that people can get? There's the collector's
edition. The collector's edition they already offered is the Falcon 2, I think. And we have not used that graphic since the first games.
Are you going to bring back other ones that you're going to sell then, or?
I hope so, yes. I mean, that's the general plan. It's been a little tricky producing skateboards right now, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I bet.
No doubt.
Yeah. As you're looking back, you mentioned that you're bringing back, when you were talking to Jeff Keighley, that you're bringing back the revert, just because that seemed like the thing that kind of linked it all together. Really made it like kind of intense in terms of combos that you could create. Is there anything else?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, was there anything else that you wanted to bring from other entries?
That was the most important one to me because that honestly, when I was playing the game all through the years, I didn't start to get the big combo points until the revert was added, which was in 3. And then that's when I started to be able to hold my own in actual THPS competitions. So it was very important for me to add the revert to this very first release, even though the revert was not in 1 or 2. And that it kind of opens up those levels to new lines and new ideas. Some of the special tricks, I think, are taken from older games or from later versions. But it gets kind of blurry to me, a lot of games, a lot of tricks.
Was there like a moment where you said, you get as many songs as you can, but if this one's not, if Goldfinger isn't in it, I'm out? Like, is there a song that needed to be in it for you? Because that's part of what people were so excited about, was getting that huge soundtrack back.
Sure. Well, in the initial release, it was Dead Kennedys. So I was more beholden to the era of music and punk music that was the soundtrack of my life as a kid in the skate park, and that was Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, Sex Pistols, X, things like that, and Circle Jerks. So that's really where I wanted it to go. And then as we started to expand those soundtracks, as we got into 3 and 4 and the list of songs, the one band that I feel like that always escaped us that I loved was the Brazillos, and we managed to get the Brazillos in. I'm not sure which version, but it was a much later version. And I remember the first time that they told me we got Rosillo's Flying Saucer Attack, I was like, yes, completed the circle.
And you mentioned going back to, these early games really got the skating right. Like, I would say up into 3 and underground, stuff like that. I always thought this would be an annualized thing in games. Like, I never saw a day where these games would disappear, right? Like, I just thought they were so much fun. You got that itch every year around November, September, whenever they were coming out to play a new one. What do you think kind of went wrong with the genre in general? It wasn't just the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, but all of the, what do you call them, action sports games. It just kind of withered up at one point.
I think the market got flooded for sure, especially as things progressed and there were BMX games and surfing games and wakeboarding games, snowboarding games. I mean, you really didn't know how to gauge the quality of all of them because they were all coming so fast. But in terms of our franchise and our series, for sure the EA Skate franchise split the market when that was released, and so suddenly our sales were definitely affected by that. Their sales maybe weren't as strong as they thought they would be, where we're all just we only have so much market to share, and so eventually everyone gave up. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember Neversoft. It was the last one we did with Neversoft, Proving Ground. And they were going to put my home backyard skate park as a level in whatever we were going to do next. So they came down to my house, took photos of everything. I mean, it was almost like a 3D scan of my whole place. And then they were starting to work on it, and I remember it was less than a month later, I got a call from Joel at Neversoft, and he said, "Look, we don't have the energy, we don't have the excitement. I don't think we're going to do it again."
Oh man, that sucks.
And I understood, you know what I mean? It was disappointing, but it was we had come so far, and we didn't want to keep recycling everything, and it was a risk for them to put all their resources into another game where they're definitely not going to get the same sales. And they were deep into, I don't know what it was, like they were doing some Call of Duty stuff, they were doing Guitar Hero. They had their hands full.
Well, I hope you guys knock this one out of the park and we can get this going again, make sequels. Like, I'll take more remasters, but I really hope this lays the groundwork for the series coming back in a big way.
For sure. I think that this is just a start. I mean, ultimately, I'm so excited to bring this to a new generation, because there's this fan base for our game that started playing the game, that absolutely loved it and have great memories of their childhood playing it. But there's a whole new generation of kids that have never played the game, don't know anything about it, don't even know any other skate games. And so we're going to introduce them to it. And I feel like with that baseline, we're going to be able to really help bring either remaster other titles that we've done, 3 and 4 even, and start to work on new direction and new. I mean, that's the ultimate goal for me.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm excited about 1 and 2. I think it's everything that people are going to expect from it, and I think that people are going to be pleasantly surprised with how true to the original it is.
Awesome.
Love
Well,
it.
I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care, man.
All right, see you guys. Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.